Okay, welcome to All the Right Movies, and thought I'd just give you a little bit of that Kumite song to start things off tonight. This this is one of my just favorite comedies of all time, with some damn good fighting in there, and the Kumite song is just the best because that's where you get to find out that where they're telling you right there because this is based on the true life story of Frank Dukes, and in the credits there when they start from 1975 to 1980, Frank W. Dukes fought 329 matches. He retired undefeated as the world heavyweight full contact Kumite champion, and then not Frank, Mr. Dukes still holds 4 world records. Fastest knockout, 3.2 seconds. Fastest punch with a knockout, 0.12 seconds. Fastest kick with a knockout, 72 miles an hour. They measure the punch in time and the kick in miles per hour. And most consecutive knockouts in a single tournament, 56. And let's see, was that it for the BS? I think it was. Subsequently, Mr. Dukes founded the first American ninjutsu system, Dukes Ryu, and let's just get this out of the way early. All of that's bullshit. Frank Dukes lied his way into Hollywood. No one could ever verify that any of this ever took place. And then they started throwing in some of his claims. I'm going to dive into the trivia right away, but they claimed that the matches were like 60 rounds, which would be physically impossible. And right there you saw he had 56 consecutive knockouts. To get to 56 rounds in an elimination tournament, I think you'd need, somebody did the math on that, and you'd need several million people in the tournament. So yeah, even if it was all bullshit, even if he'd made it semi-believable, which he didn't, but it just made for a fantastic movie. And he's not the first and not the last guy to lie his way into Hollywood. I mean, even the American ninjutsu system, I think they said was bullshit as well. That never really got going either. But it just makes for great credits. Thinking, hey, I just saw something really realistic and cool. You didn't. You didn't at all. So this movie though carried a lot of influence. This is one of the first movies really to get its life on cable TV, on movie cable channels. Then later on, it's making the rounds on TNT, TBS, USA. So you've got that. Just very entertaining. Now some people go, it's not a sports movie. I say it is. It is a illegal underground pit fighting championship sports movie. The only one of its genre I think that existed. Some say kickboxer, but I go no. And kickboxer, Jean Claude's brother was a world karate champion, goes to Thailand to fight the Muay Thai champion, gets crippled, and then Tong Po, and we'll talk a little about Tong Po because he's in this movie. But then later on, then he just goes and fights a one-off with Tong Po where they, wrap ropes around their fists and then dip them in sticky candy and then broken glass and whatever. But that's for another time, and I don't think kickboxer is going to quite make it on here. This is the only entrant. This is the genre of illegal underground pit fighting, and it's great. So let's talk a little bit about it first. It did go to the theaters. I wondered if it was ever really in the theaters. It was, and it's got some surprising stuff about it in the theaters. It came out, it made its debut on April 29th, 1988. It actually finished 87th in box office that year, and me barely even, not even remembering seeing a theater advertising it or anything like that, I was kind of surprised it finished in the top 100, and it made $11 million, close to $12 million, about 11,800,000, and its budget was estimated at 1.1 million. That's a win. 10 million in profit. You're the producers. You put in 1.1 and came back with 10. Bully on you. I bet you're pretty happy with that. Let's see. He actually. Well, you know what it reminds me of is Total Recall. When I think of somebody pushing their chips in on a movie, there's the Arnold Schwarzenegger story where he basically just pushed he was the executive producer of Total Recall, and basically pushed all his life savings, all the money he had, into making that movie. He threw everything into it, and then that basically gave him his fortune that he really ran off and made money with. But that was the and it's not like he would have been broke. Arnold's still going to get hired, be a bankable star if Total Recall doesn't make millions and millions of dollars. But he cashed in. He made millions and millions of dollars, and that's why I say this is a small version of that, because most releases, I think I saw like the higher release movies are all in like 1,500 to like 2,400 theaters. Most movies are between 1,000 and 2,000 theaters. Bloodsport was only released in 124 theaters and made $12 million. That's nuts. That's packing those 124 theaters, and that's crazy. No wonder I didn't remember seeing. I doubt if it. Who knows if it even got to Omaha or Lincoln, and if it did, it probably shows up and is gone in a few weeks. But yeah, that's kind of nuts. The big money makers for that year, for 1988, Who Framed Roger Rabbit was number one, brought home about 156 million, and the next four were Coming to America in second, Good Morning Vietnam in third. That surprised me. I loved it. I knew it was popular. I didn't realize it was top 5 for the year popular. Let's see, Big with Tom Hanks was number 4, and Crocodile Dundee 2 was number 5. And then usually I just give you the first 5. You're going to have heard of a lot of them. We all think of Die Hard, as being like a number 1, number 2 type movie. It was 7th that year. So just so you know. And then let's talk about, I like to do a Mount Rushmore wherever I can. God knows Jean Claude Van Damme had plenty of movies to choose from. I'll give you mine if you're out there. I don't see anybody in the comments yet, but get in the comments. Give me your top 4 Van Damme movies. If you're in here watching a podcast about Bloodsport, I imagine you might have thoughts. Some of you. So yeah, throw them in there. Even if you're not, if you haven't watched before, or even if you have and got nothing to say, jump in the comments. Give us a go big red. We love that. But here's my top 4. I got Bloodsport, Kickboxer, Nowhere to Run, and Time Cop is my top 4. Bloodsport put him on the map, and I got to include that. Kickboxer kind of kept it going, and then that's what started getting him like starring roles in top in like bankable movies for several years. He had a nice run. It was like what was the hockey one? I forget. There was the hockey one. But Nowhere to Run might have been his best movie. That actually got decent review. That got pretty decent reviews. It was Ted Levine from Silence of the Lambs. It puts the lotion in the basket. Ted Levine was the bad guy in that movie, and it had to be sellable as being able to survive for a little bit and a head-to-head fight with Jean Claude Van Damme, and and he painted himself as a pretty tough guy. Of course, he's going to get his teeth kicked in the end, but it had Rosanna Arquette and Kieran Culkin maybe, and he was just basically trying to help this widow with her cute kid from getting her house stolen by the bad guy Joss Ackland. He was the Lethal Weapon 2 South African bad guy, and he's just as evil in this. So, but that actually actually had a nice little story to it, as well as the actions. That might have been his best movie. And then Time Cop was just a bunch of silly fun. If you just suspend your time travel disbelief, John Claude, Ron Silver got it done in that one. And Mia Sara played his wife in Nowhere to Run. If you remember her, she was also Ferris Bueller's girlfriend in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And she just returned to the screen in The Life of Chuck. And I might have told you about it before, so I won't talk about it long. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. It's a Stephen King, based on a Stephen King story. It definitely has the Stephen King flavor in there, but it's not a pure horror movie or even close to something like that. So you get a chance. Give Life of Chuck a watch. I think it's going to stream here at the end of July in a couple of weeks. But yeah, Time Cop, that's also on the Mount Rushmore. I think that's one that did Was a big money maker the year it came out. Roger Ebert. Roger didn't find the time to to give a review to Bloodsport, and when I ask why, I think I've already answered that question. 124 theaters. Raj probably wasn't giving Bloodsport the time of day if you're just a karate movie coming out on 120 screens. Rotten Tomatoes, absolutely predictable. The reviewer percentage of thumbs ups was 48%. It was a Rotten Tomato. The audience, 74%. The audience knew what was going on. The reviewers just saw 1.1 million that just saw a low budget piece of crap, and just if they reviewed it, they were like so that was interesting. Anyway, here's my thing on before we start getting into the scenes and the nuts and bolts of it here. It foreshadowed quite a few things. I think it was stolen from, and I picked two out. I put it in the little lead in on YouTube. The little intro when I post that this is going to be on, and I say it absolutely. Somebody watched that Dana White or whoever got. I don't know if he got the original UFC tournaments going, because remember UFC didn't used to be ranked like boxing and have a championship belt and everything. Those first UFC things were just straight up like 8-man tournaments in one night. And I can see why that didn't survive. Whoever came up with that was a Bloodsport fan and took it from Bloodsport. I will not argue with this. Feel free in the comments to go ahead if you want. But holy moly, I mean that's just straight up. All they did was put him in a cage instead of having one of the ways you could win to be shoved off a 2-foot elevated mat or whatever the heck that was, that they turned into 2 ramps and a low middle at the end, which also hilarious. But yeah, that's the UFC in 1988. And when did UFC started going about 5 years later? And at the beginning, I think all they could find was Colorado. Only Colorado would even agree to host it back when I think the only rules were no fish hooking and no eye gouging, but hair pull, punch the groin all you want, as one dude famously did to win a fight. And there you had it. And then the other one, Game of Thrones, I am looking right at you. You guys, you producers, you saw Bloodsport 2 because Ray Jackson, played by Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds, it was just a direct copy of almost what Chong Li did to him. And the same thing. So here's Ray Jackson, and Chong Li's this badass and just starts 2 different fights getting the shit kicked out of him. So I was like, is he really setting all these records? Because it looks like the only way he wins is by, well, first of all, you have Ray Jackson knock him on his ass, and all he has to do is jump down there and knock him unconscious, whatever, and knock him the hell out. And instead, he's running circles around him. Woo, woo. Then Chong Li gets up and just clubs him from behind, and then ends up jumping on his head. So then when you see Ray for the rest of the movie, he's wearing one of those bandages around his head that people always wear in cartoons. I didn't see any ice under it. I figure, that's a hell of a contusion. Did we see blood maybe out his nose? But I just thought it was really funny to have a Bugs Bunny head bandage wrapper that Wile E. Coyote wore. But what happened? Started celebrating early, got his head stomped in. What happens with Pedro Pascal is Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper in Game of Thrones, is fighting the giant, and wins, starts celebrating early, running around, gonna get the revenge for my wife and my kid, and leans in to taunt him a little, and remember, just the head squished like grape, and everybody in the audience and watching it on TV was screaming in horror that we just saw a head explode. That's just straight out of the Bloodsport playbook, and I absolutely, you won't not convince me. Even if the producers get up there and say that's a coincidence, I'm like, that's a little too big of a coincidence. It's the exact same thing. You copied it. Bully on you. It was a great copy. We'll just call it an homage to Bloodsport. So yeah, that's kind of wild. The effect it had, and what a plot. what a fantastic plot. Think about it. No one had ever really done I don't know, karate tournament. You had Bruce Lee, and he was kind of in one, was it Enter the Dragon, whichever one was on the island. He's kind of in one there, but it just isn't put together as well. And also you had Chong Li in there, too. Fun thing, there's a lot of great unintentionally comic lines, and we'll get to this scene. But you had Jean Claude had to, Frank Dukes had to take this test to get into the fight because they didn't really believe, a Belgian guy, a Canadian American with a thick Belgian accent was part of the revered Tanaka clan. So he had to do the dim mock, also bullshit. They had the different little stacks of bricks, and he had to break the one on one of the stacks on the bottom without breaking any of the others. And so he has to do that test, and after he does it, he's in, and everybody's clapping. They're really impressed. And then you see Chong Li over there and go, very good, but bricks, not hit back. In Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee, there's a board-busting kind of contest or test or whatever, and Bruce Lee said, that's good, but boards no hit back. And boards don't hit back or not hit back or whatever it was. And apparently they just as out a kind of a shout to Bruce Lee, or out to Bruce Lee and Chong Li being in the movie, they have him run the Bruce Lee line back only with bricks. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, what a great plot. Okay, it's a secret tournament. No one ever finds out about it. It's in Hong Kong. The cops are in on it. They're bribed and in on it. But funny how just about anybody with some cash can get in, and then the reporter manages to walk in. And for something that they don't tell everybody about, that no one seemed to have trouble finding it. And let's put it this way: the stands are packed. Another thing that's kind of bullshit. Even though it's a small place, but you got the stands packed with what looks like a few hundred people. Guys, the worms, that thing's not staying secret for centuries or whatever the hell they were claiming it. But whatever, it's a great plot. I'm not going to put ludicrous up there because it's not ludicrous. It's fun. I like it. I like the tournament. So tell you what, I actually have a lot of notes on this because I've been writing. I think I've gotten about 12 movies done in 10 years or so, but I slowly have been writing a top 50 favorite sports movie list, and I kind of took that to this, and that's where the idea for the pod was born. And I was looking for something to do in the summer, and figured, hey, we got people that like some sports movies, let's get her done. So I think I had it number 48 in my top 50 or 49, so it was one of the first ones I wrote, and I had a blast writing it. So I've got plenty of notes. And let's just start going through the scenes. I actually didn't have to watch this again. I realized, thanks to cable, that I'd probably already seen it 50 times, or at least part of it. We'll get to that, the rewatchability part. And as I said in the article, and I'm going to be quoting myself because this was fun to write, I said, this was my lead, was anybody with HBO or Cinemax in the late 80s and 90s has entertained themselves with multiple viewings of this American classic, which is one of the finest movies ever made about a Canadian American with a Belgian accent who dips himself in Wesson oil before he fights or has sex. And Jean Claude Van Damme plays Frank Dukes, the first American to ever win the Kumite, which is an international no-holds-barred annual underground tournament, or something like that. By the way, Bloodsport also makes the based on a true story claim, which I'm betting if they ever, because I made fun of Cool Runnings for having nothing to do with how the Jamaican bobsled team actually came about and what happened to him at the Olympics. And I said I'm betting that Cool Runs comes off like a very solid 30 for 30 documentary compared to this, because it's just all utter bullshit. And it kicks off with a montage with the music to that song I played on the lead in, which is oddly enough called Kumite. and it's amazing. It's like you hear it's like they basically, that song has two choruses, which is just saying Kumite over and over 16, 20 times, and while showing everybody training for the big fight, that that means you got people, you got sparring partners getting knocked unconscious, because that's always a great way to get sparring partners. Tying coconuts to a tree branch and then walking out on the tree branch and karate chopping the coconuts open, and then another guy who's leaping around literally like a monkey. Do with that what you will, and then just hopping in the air and doing somersaults, and kind of a combo of a monkey and a frog. He sits like a frog a lot, but yeah, that guy's pretty funny. He comes to a quick end, but yeah, they're getting ready. They're ready to rock, and then the show starts, and it's time to meet JCVD. Frank Dukes, getting ready for the Kumite. And he's an Air Force something or other. He's not a pilot, and he plans to spend his furlough mixing it up with all these guys that he's shown, training in different ways, for this Kumite, which apparently, death can be a part of it, and is in this movie. And the military, for some odd reason, has a problem with one of their prized assets running off to Hong Kong to fight in a secret death tournament, and so they decide they're going to try and confine him to the base. That ends predictably. He has no trouble escaping, and then he goes and heads over. You got his master Tanaka, and then this is just montages upon montages, and you see we'll talk about that in a sec. He goes back there for last minute advice for hopping a plane to Hong Kong. And then the military summons in a very overweight Forrest Whitaker. Yeah, Forrest Whitaker's in this. And then an old white guy with him to go grab, a master of martial arts. I don't know. He's probably does Air Force have some special forces? If you know that, help me out. But those are the two you're going to send to, forcefully bring this guy back if necessary. And so, yeah, but they bring this guy, they give him tasers and tell him to drag him back against his will. And again, feel if you haven't seen it, you can probably guess how that turns out. So he visits the master on the deathbed, and then you get the montage of his upbringing. And it turns out little JCVD was dared by his buddies to break into this guy's house, to steal a samurai sword. So they're like, go steal a sword from a martial arts master and his son, who's about Frankie's age. He's like half his size, but I think they're supposed to be the same age. And his dad is training him for this. As a young child, he's beginning to train him for this Kumite fight. And anyway, he gets caught stealing the sword. The guy, the martial arts master, old man, I guess he's not that old at that point. He's the kid's dad, not grandfather, but takes the sword from him, and he's wearing like a San Francisco Giants cap, and he waves, misses his face by about yay much by slicing the bill off his cap. And so what he does is, I'm going to make sure I get this right, drags him home to his parents and says he wants him to train with his own boy, turn him into a sparring partner, for this kid. He's going to getting in shape for, a death match in Hong Kong when he's older. And, little Frank's parents see, I guess he's kind of getting to be big Frank, but see nothing odd about turning their boy over to a complete stranger who's training his kid for an illegal international secret pit fight contest where dudes get killed on occasion. So it's on. They're great. You're gonna learn to fight, and you're gonna be a sparring partner for training a kid for a death match. And then the kid dies, but then JCVD says, I will step in, let me be your son, I will fight the Tanaka name. So that's how he ends up in this tournament. You get a little backstory and a montage and all that. And so he basically, apparently the way to train for these is to tie him to trees or bamboo stalks or whatever it was until he can do complete splits. And, the damage that he must take to the groin, because it just looks like he keeps roping it apart, and while Frank screams a lot. He's getting older, and he's turned into not the young actor, but now he's Jean Claude Van Damme again. And I very much would be doing the same thing if that was the training, is like to pull your legs apart until they're at 90-degree angles to your body off to the sides. I'd be screaming a lot too, and I'd probably never come back after the first day that are never lent back. And so then he's teaching him how to fight blindfolded like Luke Skywalker. So the Force is in there too. 12 years, or was it? Yeah, about 12 years after Star Wars, they're trying to grab a little of that Star Wars. Yeah, he's fighting, teaching him to fight blindfolded. And anyway, he says, let me be your son and fight. And so he's heading to he is heading to his first Kumite. And so this is it. So he's been, still training, I guess, and while in the Air Force, whatever. They're the Tanaka clan. They make it work. And now that they've got the audience up to speed with the backstory, it's off to Hong Kong. He checks into the hotel, and the first thing he needs is a best friend. And it's, like I said, it's Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds. His name's Ray Jackson. He's from Texas. He uses no martial arts whatsoever. He just walks in and like beats the snot out of people. Like if beating the shit out of someone is a martial art, that's his martial art. And then also milling around the hotel. They meet in the hotel, and I think Jean Claude beats him at a karate video game, which I remembered from college, having played that game. And he's never really played it before. Naturally, he just starts beating Ray up in this video game, kind of pissing him off a little. But then you also get to meet the token sex partner for the star, and that's this blonde reporter who you'd see in some of the Cinemax shows of the 80s. And so in this case, she's playing an annoying reporter who wants to blow the lid off the Kumite. And so this is someone that I wrote this down, that Jean Claude Van Damme will no doubt have to, 1, save, 2, put her in her place at some point, and 3, oil himself up and close the deal. And this role is always crucial to an 80s movie that's going like straight to HBO and Cinemax. So it checks all those boxes. And then they meet this little Eastern guy, Asian guy named Lin, and he just kind of turns into their guide to the tournament. Just those two. So he takes them down. He's in charge of showing them like which tiny little dirty, dangerous back alleys you take to this hidden Kumite arena with a dirt floor. And then he I use this line. They've got these big burly door guards. I really think it's funny that they've got these guards. What are these guards going to do? These are supposedly like some of the best martial artists in the world. If they get pissed off, it's like it just sounds like guards are going to be getting their teeth kicked in. And one of them, they convince them they're both from the USA, and one's like, "Okay, USA." And Lynn, like he just has these amazing powers of fast-talking annoyance, and uses that to get him past the guards. And just like that, they're in. But no, they're not. Next scene, they have the stringent check-in rules, and these almost sidetrack JCVD out of the gate. I wrote, there was no facial recognition technology in 1988, but regardless, the old Chinese guys in robes that run the event are just a little skeptical that an American who talks like a Frenchman with a mouthful of waffles is part of the fabled Tanaka clan. Naturally, there's a contingency plan in place, which I told you about, the dim mock where you bust a brick. Jumping into the trivia a little there, I did see that dim mock was an actual thing. But it's not breaking a brick at the bottom of a pile of bricks. It's a punching technique where you try to do damage with a lot of short, fast punches to vital parts of the body, organs maybe. And they said the best example of that, for those of you who really, really like your martial arts movies, was Pei Pei Chang's character in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Use the actual dim mock to take somebody out with a bunch of these short, quick punches that kill the guy in the movie or whatever. So there you go. It's, some of the bullshit was only kind of bullshit. So anyway, does that, busts the one on the bottom, and that's where you get your first look at Chong Li and his amazing Sylvester Stallone and Rocky IV level man breasts. They are some of the biggest muscly man breasts ever to grace the silver screen. And when he gets mad, he starts popping them up and down. That's like he'd make a horrible poker player, because I'm thinking, he goes shirtless that character would go shirtless as often as he could in life. And when he sat down to play poker, anytime he got dealt 2 aces down and hold 'em, those things are going to just start bouncing up and down, and everybody's going to fold on him, and he's going to be, how did they know? How did they know? So let's see if I got a shot here of Chong, or I already used the, I did get a good shot of Chong Li. Screw me. Here, Ray Jackson. There's Ray Jackson and their annoying little friend Lynn. And Lynn just talks a mile a minute. And there's Ray looking actually happy. He's very good in this, by the way. He is funny. There's a scene I'll talk about here shortly near the end where you're like, damn, he's actually trying to act and doing it well in a just Hong Kong action movie with unintentional comedy galore. And this was the one, and by God, talk about unintentional comedy, when Frank Dukes gives her that little salute as he's hopping on the plane back to America, and she just gives him that thoughtful look, giving him the little fist in the palm salute back, and I can't help but laugh. And and here's the team hired to bring back the world's greatest international illegal pit fighting martial artist are these two. And yet there is a scene where they chase him, and oh my God, it's just hysterical. He could have escaped in like under 5 seconds, but for some reason he wants to taunt these poor guys, and so just kind of leads them around Hong Kong, chasing them till they both manage to fall in what has to be just an absolutely disgusting bay if you're watching what's going on and just the boats and whatnot in this awful bay. But yeah, I mean, I could get away from these guys now, and so it's as soon as they've sent to get him back, it's just hilarity. And also, but since I've already been jumping ahead talking about that scene where they chase him around, they're running around with like the giant tasers of the 80s, the things that basically the ones that look like a big dust buster, only with the shot the nodes out. And I know they still have those, but they're not near as big anymore. And they're hopping on. It was the 80s, man. They're hopping on airplanes with these things, and that's what the 80s was like. They'd check the bag, they'd X-ray the bags, but these guys just had to flash a badge, and they were bringing whatever they want on. Screw you, Al Qaeda. Getting on an airplane used to be a lot easier. So anyway, we look at Chong Li. He does the bricks not hit back thing after Jean Claude makes that amazing thing. And since we're about 4 scenes in, we got a couple comments. Let's see who we got. Orson Adolf, who says he's a Hog fan. Well, but gives us a GBR Orson. Thanks for saying howdy. Let's see here. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Just tried to get that back off here. All right. Technology. I figure it out eventually. So, we're now going to we got our first look at Chong Li, and now we're back at the hotel, and now you've got the reporter, the annoying reporter lady, and she's decided to pester a couple guys with turbans on to spill the beans on the Kumite. And this is what's awesome about having written an article is I read down stuff that was way funnier than what I was going to come up with on the top of my head. And no, I'm not. Here's the thing. I trust me finding something funny. I don't think everything that comes out of my mouth is comedy gold. So when something makes me laugh, I think, okay, this might actually be funny. And this made me laugh rereading it. I said, visionaries such as the directors of Bloodsport and Iron Eagle, but like I think Iron Eagle was 2 years before, maybe 1985 or 6, something like that. And they knew that the days of making bad guys out of the Germans and then the Vietnamese were coming to an end. That Rambo and Chuck Norris could only rescue so many prisoners of war and go refight the Vietnam War. He can still come up occasionally with a Saving Private Ryan, but now we don't think of the Germans as like the mortal enemies anymore. That time has passed. You could see it was starting the Vietnamese go back to Vietnam to give Charlie some payback stuff was starting to run its course. But these guys knew that the days of making bad guys out of them were coming to an end. They also knew that Reagan and Bush had not yet recognized America's future enemies. A warning shot was fired right at Iron Eagle and right here, and the world failed to take heed. The Middle East is bad news, and they hate Americans. And that is the next region that we're just gonna let you know that everything about them is evil. And we're starting with they hate Americans, even Americans with French Belgian accents, because he is in the U.S. Air Force in this movie. So naturally, Middle Easterners are the type of people, when asked by a cute female reporter to provide the scuttlebutt on the illegal underground pit fighting tournaments, they will respond by demanding sex from said hot female reporter, and then get all grabby and slappy when told no. So this is what Jean Claude is walking into the middle of, and also you see a gleaming gold tooth in one of their mouths. So you got to remember that. So he intervenes and almost sets off a lobby rumble, but then decides, that if they fight, any fighting outside of the tournament is grounds for expulsion. So you get in a fight with an opponent, not on tournament grounds, might bring attention. Not a bad rule. You're gone. So he challenged them to a coin snatching contest where he puts it, I think, on top of his hand or maybe in his hand, and goes and dares him to, or challenges him to snatch the coin out of his hand before he can close his hand, or him to snatch it, I think, out of that guy's hand. Because Jean Claude's going to do the snatching. That's more impressive. So Jean Claude's doing that, and the fighting pride of Iran, having no idea that Jean Claude is an Oriental Jedi himself, accepts, loses, and then makes big shock rounded eyes, and then skulks off snarling and muttering in a bad accent, and that's the end of potential trouble there. So in the next day, the tournament is on, and Jean Claude and Ogre are told there's only 3 ways to win. And UFC, knockout, okay, yeah, it's a TKO, and they're pounding on him and they stop the fight. So knockout, TKO or whatever. Make the other guy say mate, which is basically quit. So, but it's say mate instead of tap outs. I wouldn't have doubted that they could verbally tap out, except if you're getting choked, you probably can't say mate. So, or I think the way they put it is if you leave the mat, if you go off the mat in any way. Really? It's like, with number 3 being an option, I think that a very big part of the training would be to work on your tripping, your Kumite skills would be like tripping or shoving really hard or something like that. Just the martial art, shove foo or something. Because if all you got to do is get near the edge and boot, and just shove them off and you win. You might not go for all the kicking and swinging. You're just waiting for anybody to get off balance near the edge, and then what if you try to tackle them off? Is it whoever lands on the bottom? Really a lot to think about here. So anyway, tournament's on. We're there. It's time to go, and they start playing the Kumite music again, showing a lot of the different fighters. A couple things on the different fighters. Let's see. One of them, and I mentioned this. What's his name? Where is he? And what's his name? There's a guy, Paulo Tocha, and you see him. He was a real life Muay Thai champ, and he has like the big Muay Thai shorts on there, and kind of looks like a Paulo Tocha. So he's easy to pick out. And then you have Michael Kesey, who in this one he's a big guy, and in this one he's just kind of got like short kept curly hair. He plays Tong Po in Kickboxer, where they. Did I say something about that? Maybe not yet. But he, if you remember Tong Po, he's Thai in Kickboxer. Michael Kesey, as you can clearly see in Bloodsport, is not even close to looking Thai. But they did the thing where they basically kind of would be fairly offensive if a guy got that role today, and they did the best to give him the Oriental eyes or whatever, the kind of tie-dye look. You watch it now, it's him as Tong Po realizing what's going on. It's a little like, I don't think they'd get away with that today. But anyway, Tong Po comes in, breaks his own fastest knockout record, and the sign comes up right away, boom, boom, however many seconds, and everybody's chanting Chong Li, Chong Li, Chong Li, and it looks like I said, it looks like mostly rich dudes, and I said that I guess they're like a lot of the '80s equivalent of modern American clowns with like the barbed wire tattoos on their arms. They used to wear the Affliction T-shirts around in public. But anyway, next up is Jean Claude's opening round bout, and what an amazing coincidence! He's fighting the the Iranian or the Iraqi woman slapper guy, and so it's like having seen there's a fastest knockout record in Chong Li's fight. You probably don't need to guess real hard what's going to happen next. That's right, boom. Chong Li's fastest knockout record is no more. And also, you probably guess what happened to the gold tooth in the Middle Eastern guy's mouth is, that thing goes flying out, and then they have like these guys in purple gis that are kind of like the cleanup crew, and this guy finds that tooth on the ground by the ring, just kind of slides it into his old towel he's cleaning up with. So he's now one gold tooth richer, and you can bet that Chong Li's gonna correctly guess that Chong Li is not happy at all watching his record fall, and they show him bouncing the boobs and giving good old JCVD the stink eye for that one. Now, I should mention here that there's a character in this movie who's never seen and does not get the credit he deserves, and that's the world's fastest sign painter. Because what happens when these come up, these little like boards come back down, like paint, they're painted, it's like white with red trim and black numbers. And what happens as soon as these fights are over and a record's broken, boom, they disappear. A few seconds goes by, and boom, here comes a freshly painted sign with the guy's name and the record down to the hundredths of a second, the new record down to the hundredths of a second. That's amazing. These are good looking, little good looking calligraphy there, a little bit, and he just whips these things out in seconds. I, for one, mightily impressed. Anyway, and I forgot to mention the cute little light bulb. There's like some Sylvania 75-watt light bulbs surrounding the sign. Good fun. So anyway, he's the 1-0. He's advanced to the second round or whatever it is. Yeah, and the camera pans to show Chong Li's eyes getting very large, the boobs furiously bouncing, and he is not happy. So they head back to the hotel, and back at the hotel, guess who's waiting? And let me have a little sip for this one. Propel. Still waiting for you, buddies. Shane Miley's not here to yell at me that Propel's never giving me a licensing deal, an advert deal. Oh, but I'm going to keep trying just because why not? If it doesn't happen, it's the expected. If it doesn't happen, I will be laughing at my daughter for years to come. So anyway, back at the hotel waiting for him are Chubby Forrest Whitaker and Crusty White Sidekick. And they've got those Dustbuster tasers out. And anyway, it's like Ray Jackson, JCVD's new best friend, tackles them both and gives Jean Claude a running start, which I'm not sure he needed. But yeah, they turn on top of him pretty quick, hold the tasers to his face, and tell him not to move. And okay, good enough. He gave him, and then you've got the whole chase I described, which ends up with them. Falling into that rancid bay, and he gives them like the little salute and runs off. And that's the closest I think they come to catching him. So it's on to day 2. Chong Li gets to fight Tong Po, and just before his possibly offensive Eastern eye makeup and for kickboxer, but yeah, he cleans house with them, and then Jean Claude Van Damme, it's his turn to fight the one guy who he has probably the most trouble with, that fights, at least somewhat fair, And that's it's one of these guys, it's this guy that looks like he weighs about 290, 300 pounds. And he's fat, but it's not like slovenly fat. He looks just like solid without any real muscle tone. And he's just got one of those like rock hard beer guts, if you know what I mean. It's like, here's a gut on him, but it's not sloshing around. It looks like it's solid. And if you try to punch that thing, it'll probably hurt. And everything he tries, he's kicking, he's punching, and this guy's just like throwing him down and laughing at him and stuff. So I think this is where Jean Claude Van Damme comes up with this move. Yeah, so watch it again. Yeah, so down there you go. All the groin ripping split training is worked out. And then just straight up into the package there, right onto the crown jewels, and then he unleashes that scream, and I'm thinking that's the other guy ought to be screaming if he takes that. so they're moving on through the tournament. Let's see, and for some reason, think about it. What would the crowd reaction be to someone just going for the the slug to the cranberries to take out the guy he can't beat straight up? And I've seen it. I told you there was the guy in like UFC 2, I think I remember like watching that. And this guy is fighting this dude, and he has him down, and he just starts like coming back and like throwing elbows and punches right in this poor guy's crotch. And this is a guy named Josan who came to the ring dragging like a huge wooden cross to the ring, which I'm guessing takes a little out of you. Probably not the best way to save your energy, but not to go through the whole UFC fight night, but yeah. And the crowd was booing like crazy. And Jean Claude gets like cheers for this wonderful inventive strategy. And so I guess it's legal, go for it. But I've seen the crowd. I've seen an incident where the crowd got to watch that and did not appreciate the strategy one bit. So where does that leave us now? Okay, next up is Chong Li versus Ogre, Ray Jackson. And this is the one that's the one directly ripped off by Game of Thrones. He ends up just walking into Chong Li, like pops him in the head and just beats on him. And Chong Li's down there, and then runs around celebrating. Ends up gets his heart. Oh, and then Chong Li steals his Harley Davidson bandana that he wears like wrapped around his knee or something. I guess if you want to wear a bandana around his knee, I don't know why Chong Li saw that as such a trophy, but that way, when JCVD gets his revenge for his buddy, for putting his buddy in the hospital, is he going to take that bandana back and give it back to Ray? You bet he is. So Chong Li, let's see, and that's the thing. As I wrote here, since the movie requires Chong Li to be in the final, Ogre decides to turn his back on him and run around hooting like a drunk freshman. This tactic results in him losing his Harley bandana and being hospitalized. So, interesting strategy. Let's see how it plays out for him. So, and at this point, like the dizzy reporter is, my God, you got to pull out. This tournament's not the sex, but the tournament. This is gas dangerous. It's like no shit. You figured that out, huh? And anyway, we're ready to go to day 3. Every good athlete recognizes the importance of a quality warm-up, and JCVD is no exception. After a light routine of beating up half the Hong Kong police force to get in the arena, and then using a trash can lid to disarm, they fire their tasers at him finally, and he just uses a trash can lid to knock him away like a shield. So he's ready to rock. And I think there was another montage of him walking around Hong Kong at night, really sad because his friend was hurt, to some more soft music, and then he puts on his tight little purple. It's not a thong. It's not a thong, but it's pretty close. So he goes and does some split warm-ups on the balcony and that. And so, ladies, this is for you. The ladies that are horny as the guys are, this is for you too. So it's time to rock. It is let's see, where did I go from there? That was Gage. I might have. Well, anyway, it's time for the final, and where did I tuck that one? Give me just a moment here. There we go. I knew I had some good stuff on the final, and I think I got it, but I want to make sure I don't leave anything out. So it's the semis, and Chong Li is ready to send a message. He understands intimidation. The crowd has just seen him almost just get the crap kicked out of him in about 20 seconds flat. So he's fighting this smaller guy, and I don't know how this guy made the semis. There were a lot of much better looking fighters. He's not like a skinny twink, but he's kind of a skinny twink. But a very well trained one. He is jumping and gets a couple of kicks in. But at the end, he gets grabbed at like a chokehold. And so Chong Li's kind of going like thumbs up, thumbs down or whatever, and seems to have the approval of the crowd a little bit, not much, a little bit, but decides to snap his neck. Because, you got to send a message. Yeah, just snaps his neck, kills him. And apparently it's the kind of thing where, you'd think even in a Kumite type competition, there might be rules against cold-blooded murder of an unconscious guy. But apparently this organization's commissioner is the Hong Kong equivalent of Roger Goodell or somebody. So no harm, no foul. Now, they do. It's kind of crazy because you see one of the cleanup guys, checks his pulse and then looks up at him like, I can't believe this. And Chong Li's trying to get the crowd to Chong Li, and they won't do it. And then the old men they've got like a seat at the end of this thing where they've got their little throne seats or whatever to lord over the competition, and they all stand up and turn their back on him. But apparently it's not enough to like kick him out of the tournament. And that's very Roger Goodell-ish. I mean, how much crap has he swept under the rug for the owners of misbehavior? Granted, not a cold-blooded murder in the middle of competition. I don't think he'd abide by that. But yeah, they're all for like, we're disowning you. But anyway, come back to the finals. So yeah, no harm, no foul. And I had a couple of notes that I kind of liked. I already talked about one where it was like, wonderful time where you can just roll on with your tasers. And here was Jean Claude had thing where he's like doing the kick, I think in the Iranian guy's face, but doesn't touch him. And I made this note. I always wanted to be flexible enough to kick cigarettes out of guys' mouths like Billy Jack. Who knew the secret was being tied to bamboo shoots and stretched for hours while screaming your head off? And so, let's see. When I threw in the Roger Goodell comment, I made a note there. It's like, well, I get fired for that. Apparently, an ESPN employee requirement is to pretend publicly that Roger the Dodger is as brilliant as he is witty. To me, that's like telling people my dog can play cello in the symphony and expecting them to believe it, but whatever. Now I just don't even really notice Roger Goodell anymore, but apparently I wasn't a fan back then. That wasn't that funny, but I think it got my hate for him out there. So anyway, JCVD, he takes care of business in his semifinal, and Chong Li realizes his breasts and neck snapping and stink eye aren't having the intimidating effect he was hoping they'd have. So we're off to the final, and here we go for the second time. Chong Li's just getting his ass handed to him. Here comes Jean Claude Van Damme just kicking the living crap out of him. Bloodies his mouth up a little after a face kick, knocks him to the floor, and now here's where Bloodsport is stealing directly from the WWF and sort of in its infancy in the 80s as a national organization. And I don't know how many of you remember Mr. Fuji. Mr. Fuji at one point, I think he managed. He was a classic manager, and every now and then he'd throw in like that old man, like those old man like black shoulder strap, like tank tops that dip down like almost to your stomach for some reason. And Mr. Fuji loved to reach into his shorts and throw like Japanese stinging salts into his opponent's eyes. So when he sees that that Jean Claude's not going to turn around and start running around and give him a chance to club him from behind like good old Ray, yeah, he reaches in his trunks, pulls these salts out, the old Mr. Fuji trick, fires this stuff into Jean Claude's face, and he immediately like drops to his knees, goes blind, and starts screaming. And I'm telling you what, that is the exact same way I would react if I got hit in the face by something that had been poisoning in Chong Li's shorts for like a half hour. Yeah, you're damn right I'd scream. Holy crap. I don't know what the salt was, but just any kind of granular anything that's been sweating there, next to Chong Li's lovelies, forget it. It's like I am mateing as fast as I can. I am demanding a bucket of water, and I'm probably scrubbing for the next 3 hours before before it even occurs to me that, hey, you quit, you said mate and cost yourself a championship. Big deal, man. I'm getting that shit out of my eyes. And if that's also legal, because they didn't stop the fight for that, then I'm not sure what was legal and why there wasn't way more dirtier shit. So anyway, yeah, that, as you can tell, the Mr. Fuji trick just still has me like reeling in horror from what I'm seeing in my own mind's eye. So anyway, remember that Tanaka trained him to fight blind. So once he starts screaming and yelling about Chong Li crotch sweating in his eyes, then he realizes, hey, I've done this. I've used the force, and even though I'm blinded, it's not even going to slow me down. So he just kicks the hell out of him, then gets him in the chokehold and makes him say mate. So he's like, think about the only mate I saw in there was Chong Li, tapping out to Jean Claude. So he's the champ, and then he gets the headband back. He takes the headband back because you can't keep Ray Jackson's Harley headband. No way, no how, not in this life or any other. So we're back at the hospital. He goes back to the hospital to visit Ray. I think he's still wearing the silly head bandage. And I'd say I get it if they were wrapping ice around it or something. But all of a sudden, they have this little scene where Ray tells him he loves him, and Jean Claude tells him anywhere. They tell each other anytime, anywhere, and I'll be there. And it's actually a really good scene. It is, because believe me, we've been calling out the unintentional comedy of this. This is like kind of like, oh, look at these best friends, man, telling each other they love each other. And it's not. Maybe for some it is. For me, it was like, this is really a nice scene. It's well acted by both of them, especially Ogre. And I stand by, no matter what anybody says, I'd be standing by it 100%. So we're done. He's the champ. It's off to the airport. Because at the end, after Jean Claude trash can lid deflected their last taser shot attempts, he agrees, I'm fighting today, and then I'll go back with you willingly. Which, after going into that swamp, why didn't they just work that deal out earlier? But then they can't attack him while following him through the alleys of Hong Kong. So you get to see him pausing up on the plane ramp. I tried to get a clip of that like last minute, and I'm trying to steal one off the freeze frame on Amazon on the iPad. Man, if you try to take a screenshot, it just black. They're like block screenshots. Clowns, and don't even know why. Oh, and I did find a picture. So I was kind of making fun. This is Rocky and Rocky 3, I believe, which was the first time he got really trimmed down to like, I think he dropped weight to like 155, and then muscled up, body built back up to 175. But the one thing was, he did it. This is like one of the opening scenes of Rocky 3, where he's going through the bum of the month club or whatever, when Mickey's trying to make him some money before retirement. But that's the thing, though, is he's already trimmed up, even though he supposedly doesn't get trimmed up till he goes to L.A. with Apollo. So for what that's worth. Oh yeah, let's watch that one more time. I didn't mean to, but kaboom! There's the face Jean Claude makes when he realizes he's got an eye full of Chong Li crotch salt. and I'm guessing it ain't dry either. There was probably little mottled chunks that were like hitting him in the face and going up his nose and stuff. And yeah, I can tell you, my face would have not been any happier than that at all. So he goes to meet Tweedledee and Tweedledum for the flight home, does the little fist thing with the girlfriend, and we are done. And then he puts up all the bullshit Frank Duke stuff, and that's your movie. So, dang, comments are quiet tonight. I literally have myself wondering if somehow they're shut off somewhere, but Orson got in there. Because usually I got a few people like that are chirping in, or maybe they just didn't want to do Bloodsport. You don't know what you missed. This is one of those like long gone last week, and we'll get into more famous movies after that. I just did a couple for myself here, but these are ones that I feel like after you hear about it, you just can't wait to go watch it, because it's like I get done and I want to go watch it again because I didn't watch this one before, as I said earlier. So let's go and talk about a little trivia here. There's not, usually I'll go through some best lines. There's not a lot of great lines. It's pretty forward there. But one thing that to me is pretty darn hilarious is, if I can get her back up here, Amazon. Boy, that upsets me that you wouldn't let me do a screenshot. But anyway, here, the Kumite song, the lyrics are amazing. It makes it makes You're the Best look like Jungle Land. Here's your Kumite lyrics. My body's ready, my heart's on fire. I'm gonna push it over the wire. Perfect timing, tight as a drum. The final battle's already won. I'm taking hold of every moment, given strength by the breath of life. I'm not singing it. I'm gonna stake my claim. I fight to survive, and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 times sing Kumite. Kumite, Kumite. Then the second verse, I've worked hard every night and day, so I'm prepared to make my way. Mind and body are the perfect team. Now's my chance to live my dream. I'm taking hold of every moment, given strength by the breath of life. I'm going to stake my claim. I fight to survive. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Begin fading out to the credits. 14, 16 more Kumites. There's it. That's it. That's your lyrics. A lot of work went into that. Hey, almost want to go play You're the Best. But no. Okay, so here's this is surprising. I thought there'd be a little less trivia, but thanks to all of the BS it was based on, we have some fun stuff. Jean Claude Van Damme was in with Chuck Norris, the original Missing in Action, as just one of the soldiers or whatever. And well, here's the thing: he worked he was a sparring partner of Chuck Norris's, and worked in a bar Chuck Norris owned called Woody's Wharf, and as a bouncer. So he worked as a bouncer for Chuck Norris. More stuff on JCVD. I guess he had a lot of mood in his real life. He had a lot of mood swings, depression, became addicted to drugs, and then finally was diagnosed as bipolar. Started taking the stuff for that, and he's been clean. Went into rehab, been clean ever since, and it had cost him his marriage, and he ended up going back and remarrying her. So good for you, Jean Claude. I like a happy ending. He studied ballet for 5 years, and he said if you could survive ballet training, you could survive any kind of sports training. I don't want to find out, man, because I think I know where he's going, and I think it has a lot to do with having the same kind of sensations running through you at times that he was acting like he had while being pulled apart by ropes and bamboo stalks. He claims to have learned English from watching the Flintstones, and Menachem Golan, he was the producer of Bloodsport. And if you're any kind of fans of 80s war movies and action movies, you'll remember a Golan Globus production. And Menachem Golan, what was the story? Van Damme actually ended up in Predator, and he was the original. He was going to be the original Predator, and he hated it. I don't think he was doing what they expected, so he ends up like quitting or being fired. It didn't really matter. It sounded like both of them knew this wasn't going to work. He hated the suit, the bodysuit, and at one point I think he passed out in it because it was so hot in there. So they made the newer one. They got a much bigger guy to come in and play the Predator, and he says he didn't regret that one bit. But apparently, when he was doing his bouncing stuff, Menachem Golan happened to wander into the Chuck. I think it was probably the Chuck Norris bar. I think he was doing a lot of that stuff, so it may not have been that bar. But he meets Menachem Golan and knows who he is, and decides to impress him by doing one of those jumping, spinning reverse leg kicks, missing his nose by an inch. And Golan and Golan was impressed and gave him an audition. And so he goes in, and in the audition, he like does the thing where he, with two chairs far apart, does the splits, only holding himself up by the feet on these chairs, out, with his legs completely extended to his sides. And I guess he wasn't that impressed with that, so he doesn't end up hiring him. But then later on, somebody told him that, hey, he was in Predator, and I guess they never took him off the cast sheet, so his name did pop up in the cast. So Golan verified it was him, gave him another shot, and hires him to star in Bloodsport. So basically, and then after Bloodsport, that's when his career takes off. So yeah, interesting. Sometimes it's just meeting the right person at the right time. Let's see. Now, for any of you Mortal Kombat fans, remember Johnny Cage? He was the inspiration for Johnny Cage, and they even have Johnny Cage doing the splits to the nut punch. I think is like a finishing move in the original Mortal Kombat. And they were going to use his likeness, but apparently he wanted way more than they were willing to pay him. So, they just drew their own Johnny Cage. I don't think he could really say you can't use any of my moves because I think it's stuff other people could do. But for one, it's like this is the first of two times where I'm going to give you examples of maybe you should have taken that deal, because if it was a case where they wanted to base it on sales, he'd have made a shit ton of money. And maybe it was just a flat fee and he wanted more. So who knows? But go back again, and if there was any kind of percentage, probably wishes he could do that over. And this is where, if this is actually true, then unintentional comedy has just found its way from the actual movie to the movie trivia. The line just said he auditioned and lobbied for the starring role of the title name 1989's Batman. So next year he's trying to be Batman in the Tim Burton one that went to Michael Keaton. And I'm just picturing him lobbying for it. And no offense to accents or anything, but I'm just thinking a Hollywood producer about Batman, a very American hero, and they're listening to him talk, and dude, you look the part. I don't know if the acting's where we'd want it, but you can't talk. That Bruce Wayne isn't an American with like a Belgian French accent. And I'm just wondering how many times they had to explain that to him, because they said he lobbied, and when they say lobbied, that sometimes that's another word for didn't give up or pestered, depending on which side of the lobbying you're on. And I just picture them going, look, we're being nice. At which point do we have to tell them you can't do it with that accent? And I don't think you can. You're one of those people that can flip to an American accent. Maybe you can do it now. I'm betting in the early days that not an option. So that one cracked me up for some reason. That God love Jean Claude, because hey, if we're honest, we talk about, hey, go for it. It's the Wayne Gretzky. You don't score on any of the shots you don't take. It wasn't happening, but he took his shot. But it's still funny. Okay, here's another example of would you like a do-over on that. After, I think this was like, I didn't get an exact time period, but I'm guessing we're getting into the Nowhere to Run time cop area there in the mid-'90s. And he apparently was offered like a 3-picture, $36 million deal, $12 million per. And no, he turned it down because he wanted a 3-picture $60 million, $20 million deal. At that time, the only person making that was Jim Carrey. That's when Jim Carrey became the first like $20 million per picture man. And JCVD says, "Well, then I am too." And you know, maybe you'd want to go in and do that over, especially if that went away. You know, because I just wonder if like he came back to them. Hey, is that still there? A couple years later, no, you're starting to get into your pictures are getting more closer to straight to DVD and cable than they are in the theater for 50 mil or more. So maybe not the best decision, but still got to admire the confidence. In the show, in that tournament, one of his fights, I trying to remember which one, but he blasted this dude with an elbow. In real life, he blasted this dude with an elbow and knocked him out cold, and it stayed in the movie. And he said it's somewhere down here on this list. He how to put this? He never, those early movies, he would not make them in the U.S. because he was afraid of getting sued, because they talked about just how ungodly intense that the fight training and the fight scenes were. That they were very intense. It sounds like it was there was some full contact there, which I really wouldn't doubt if I watch this again. I think I'm going to see that, and I'd really be looking for that knockout anyway. And he was the real deal as a fighter. Actually, a lot of you see him. You see him greasing up for his scenes and looks almost more like a little bit of a bodybuilder. Not quite. It's not like Arnold level, but yeah, you can tell like that's a pretty sculpted body, and you wonder, is this guy more of a gymnast? Did he fight professionally? And he did. And in like world kickboxing type stuff, his career record, and I guess it's been verified, he was 18-1-0. All 18 wins were by KO. The only loss was when he accidentally, I guess, it ended the fight, but they were like, it wasn't like him being a dick or being malicious. But when a guy was down on the canvas, he got one more kick in, and so his one loss is a DQ. And he only went down once in these fights. I guess he fought for like the Belgian national team before that, but he only went down once. And then he got back up and gave the guy an axe kick and KO'd him in under a minute still. So yeah, apparently, and if you're sparring with Chuck Norris, you're probably the real deal there. So I'll say that. Where are we at here? Okay, that movie was filmed in the Kowloon Walled City, which I remember writing this down at the bottom because I'm like, wow, talk about a place that I neither want to visit or live in. Well, now it's down, but it was, let's see, they filmed it all there, and I guess a few years later it was destroyed or just knocked down or whatever. It is one of the densest cities, and believed to be one of the densest cities in the history of the world. It only covered about 6 acres. I think the square mileage was like 1/80th of a mile or something, maybe. I don't know. But 30,000 people lived there, man. Oh, my God. Ugh, that's tight. That would be downright claustrophobic. But, yeah, that's where they actually filmed it. And then here's my story. My note I made on the actual real-life Frank Dukes was, based on a true story. Nope. It's like, it's a true story. Well, they said he was a Marine Reserve and was never left the continental U.S., never was posted overseas. And then he claimed the Kumite, the actual Kumite was in the Bahamas, which I have a little more, which just makes it's like, okay, dingy place in the Far East. Okay, that I believe. Or what I say, Bahamas? But he was, he must have had some sort of martial arts background. He was the fight coordinator for the movie, and Van Damme said that he didn't think he was kind of ripped enough, so he trained him for like 2 or 3 months, and he said that was, I'm guessing outside of the ballet, the toughest training he ever had. Let's see, I talked about Paolo Tocha and Michael Kesey, and then Bolo Young, who played Chong Li, was in Enter the Dragon. And then, Dukes tried to say, what is it? That was I think I said that. He tried to say that the actual Kumite fights with 60 rounds. And they were just like, well, that's stupid. You know how long that fight would be? Like, was if you had 60 round, 3-minute rounds, and this one they didn't have any rounds, and I thought that was the way to go. Is just do it the old, and that's what UFC used to do. Is just they go to the end, no break, and then I think they put a 25-minute time limit on it, and then it ended up becoming either 3 5-minute or 5 5-minute rounds. So, absolutely, UFC absolutely based on Bloodsport. I will not be dissuaded of that. Oh, real quick, before we start going here, we got I just got to show you this. It's from Pajvoop, and he says, "Glow blig bleg." Whatever. I know what you meant, Pajvoop. I don't want to mispronounce that. Thanks for popping in. I do appreciate it. So the 60 rounds thing, it's unbelievable, and I think that's about what I've got. Oh no! Oh, I take it back. Because we still got to rank our categories. I even bragged about our categories. So the categories were fun this time. Let's see. We have, want to make sure I do them in order here. Let's see. There's not any real comedy worth mentioning, so, we shan't. But is there unintentional comedy? Oh my God, this is a no-brainer. This is 5 stars. That's there's our 5-star guy. Just from 5 down to 1, just for anybody who might be tuning in who hasn't seen this before. There's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And Callahan and my movie articles, I think I do that rating in there, and I definitely drag that into the pod here. But there's obviously some competition for 1 and 2. Callahan was on there. I used to just I don't want to do a merge with Riley on one side and Frost on the other for the 1-star, because I'll never be unconvinced of all of Frost's shortcomings. Take away their first year, because Riley had a decided advantage by inheriting a Bo Pelini, team that had won 9 or more for 7 years, and Frost had to walk in inheriting a Mike Riley team. So we weren't getting just shit mixed under Frost the way Riley was just getting blown out that last year. And even that year he had the winning record, was one of the easiest schedules in Nebraska history. So I'm convinced that Scott Frost teams just would have crushed Mike Riley teams, because they at least were playing in the trenches with top 10 teams again and losing by 1 score. But that's neither here nor there. Riley gets that 1-star all to himself. So, like I said, first one, 5 stars on the unintentional comedy. It is just so much, from Jean Claude trying to act to Forrest Whitaker just being so uncomfortable and out of place, but still getting it done like a trooper. God, what were the whole, hey, we're switching our hate, our movie hate, our foreign enemies are now the Middle Easterners with gold teeth that get punched out or kicked out. It's kicked out. And it's just it's a comedy. It wasn't supposed to be. It's an action comedy. And it's unintentional comedy, but yeah, the unintentional comedy, boom. That's a 3 national title winner. That is unreal. Easy money. Sports quality. What did I put down here? Hell yeah, sports quality. That's an Osborne. Those guys, they brought in some of the real deals to fight. I thought about knocking it down 1-star, because you had the goofy little monkey somersaulting guy, and I'm not saying monkey to be an ass. If you haven't watched this, watch it. This guy's fighting style, I mean, he's all but going ooh. It is, you're watching that just going. Even in '88, I'm going, what in the hell is going on with this? But yeah, it was bananas. Anyway, though, the goofy, and then the rock hard beer gut guy that feels no pain. Yeah, there's that stuff in there, and you got to live with it. But there are legit quality fighters in this, and they get it on. And the way Bolo Young moves for a guy like that, he looks like he looks like he lifts so many weights he has trouble walking, and that guy can do some kicking and getting into it. That just think if you were feeling like lipping off to somebody at the bar, didn't really get a look at him from the neck down, although I think the neck itself, and turned him around and that stood up facing you. Oh, that's where I understand, and I pissed my pants, and come to life. And yeah, I take everything back. God, that just to see that get up and then start moving like that. So yeah, five stars. Osborne on the sports quality. The music, there's not if I'm bringing these things in as fun quality sports movies, you don't get to see a lot of Mike Riley. The Kumite song, the music was just kind of that, it was almost like I'd expect to find free, places where you can grab free, non-copyrighted music. If I want to make like a cheap movie and use this for free, because you just hear like the kind of whistling, generic Far Eastern karate like noises and music. So yeah, that's a Riley. It's just bad music, and then just a really horrendous song to top it all off. So yeah, music's the one, and then I rank like how's it on adrenaline scenes where you're really into it. Gonna go Bo there. Gonna do Bo. That's 3 stars because the fights are good. The fights are very good, but it's so goofy in places, enjoyably goofy. I'm not trying to say that to turn you away. This is entertaining as hell, but you're not really feeling it a lot. You're feeling it in the final fight with Chong Li, because yeah, now he's getting revenge for Ray. Got to get that Harley bandana back. We're not really laughing anymore. Then when he kills the guy, it's a pretty brutal murder setting up the final there. And, you're not really laughing. You're just kind of going like, oh my God, that's a neck snapper, a movie neck snapper. But well, I don't know. As far as we know, it's Hong Kong. Maybe that's another reason he didn't want to film in the U.S. Maybe Jean Claude wanted that realism on the snuff. Him and Golan Globus. But no, that's a solid 3. There's some good stuff, but no, it's not the kind of stuff you see like in my top 10 movies that most of them. I had a big argument. I did the Sandlot once, and I think I talked about this, and people got furious that I had the Sandlot left at like 39th maybe out of 50, and I'm like, this is top 5. It's one of my favorite of all time. And my defense to that, it's a wonderful movie. I laugh. I wasn't that old. I didn't come quite from that era. Not like that's feeling like late 50s, early 60s, and I'm not even born yet. But there's no big game. I mean, it's a fun movie about kids. They play a lot of baseball, so I call it a sports movie. But even the game where they're going to play the Little Leaguers, that played out exactly how expected. I've watched these guys play, and I know they're just going to, to use long gone term, they're going to knock their dicks off. And they did, and it's just, and they literally just have 9 people. So once they've played the Little League team, we're done with any competition except the Beast. So it's a great movie. It's just not up there where you're sweating out like the last 15, 20 minutes of it. Like say, 10 Cup, Major League. You're not laughing at the end, man. That is a very intense final there. So that's why I had some problem with Sandlot, folks. But I still defend why it's not higher, but still love it. All right, so but yeah, there's zero adrenaline scenes, and so there you go. Rewatchability. I was thinking of just not putting Osborne up because it seems weird to be ranking this like 5 stars. I don't like to hand those out easily, but this is one where you can literally jump in and something's going to happen in under 3 minutes. You're going to get a training montage. You're going to get Forrest and Krusty Guy chasing him around Hong Kong. You're going to get lots of fights. Going to get training. Going to get the chance that it's rewatchable as hell. Something good's about to happen. Just about every time you turn it on. So, and the other thing I like to talk about is the Oscar reboot. Yeah, if the whole movie scenes had worked like Jean Claude's and And Ogres at the end, you know what? It's still this one going to sniff the Oscars, guys. It's I don't know how many of you have heard the story, and I don't do it near as well. Mark Hamill became like a great voice actor in the decades following Star Wars. So he does a really good Harrison Ford impression, and he told the story once of Harrison Ford when they were filming Star Wars. And you remember, it's famously one of the big editing goofs of all time. Is they jump down into the trash bin on the Death Star and the trash compactor, and there's about knee high and knee high, waist high, between knee high and waist high in the water depth, and so he gets dragged under by this creature. He comes out just soaked, and then R2 puts the code in, spins the little socket thing he goes into, opens the door for him, and they hop out, and then you see that Luke's hair is completely dry, like blown dry. 2 seconds after they step out, and I think Leia was looking pretty dry at that point. Well, he said at that time they go to film that scene and his hair's completely dry, and Mark Hamill on whatever show he's on is saying, well, he turns to Harrison Ford and he goes, I feel like I should say something because my hair's not going to be, he was well aware, my hair's not going to be dry right after stepping out of there soaked. And he said Harrison Ford just turned to him and went, kid, it ain't that kind of movie. And that's when I start, making little complaints about Bloodsport. I just hear that Harrison Ford voice. No Oscars, kid, it ain't that kind of movie. So, only casting thing I could find, because I like it when you hear about all the so-and-so was considered. I still think that's, with a lot of people, that's bullshit their agents put out afterwards, just to, hey, look who considered me. I don't think anybody hiring in Hollywood cares who was turned down for a role. They just want to see what you did in the roles you did. But anyway, for those of you who are into this particular genre of movie viewing, here's who Frank Dukes originally was cast to be, was cast for, was Michael Dudikoff. And for those of you who don't know who Michael Dudikoff is, American Ninja, the original American Ninja. I think he did the first two. I think they did a couple more, then he came back. But one other place you can catch Michael Dudikoff in a not at all martial arts role was Bachelor Party, the Tom Hanks comedy that kind of put him on the map. And he is one of Tom Hanks' Bachelor Party buddies. He's the one with like really blown dry, poofy hair and stoned as shit. He's supposed to be just stoned as hell all the time. And so you can see Michael Dudikoff doing a little comedy on the side. But other than that, not a big list of who is considered for a movie that they were only spending $1.1 million on. I have a feeling that that Golan and Globus, one of the reasons they were successful for as many years as they were, was just flat out because they watched their pennies. You know what I mean? And they're not going to spend hours bringing in people. They're calling people up. I think I got you for this role. You don't even need to come in and read. I don't want to pay somebody to come in and watch you audition. I think they saved money any way they could. And Michael Dudikoff swerving to Jean Claude Van Damme after Menachem got one of his feet within an inch of his face in a bar was probably all the deep thought that casting that movie required. So let's see. Got one more comment up here. Kaylee Bartles outrunning that dog made me worried as a kid watching it. Yeah, that does. I think I remember that scene where he did outrun a dog at one point, and at that point you find out whether or not you trust your crew. I'll tell you that much. It's like, now this thing's not really going to bite me, is it? Oh no, you were talking about Sandlot. Oh God, yeah. See, and my grandparents had Saint Bernards, and they were just they were really sweet dogs to me for the most part. So I didn't really have the fear of the Saint Bernard. You definitely didn't want it. They get mad at other dogs that tried to come too close to like the land they lived on, but I didn't really have the fear. I was really happy when the Beast turned out to be, because I didn't like the mean dog thing. I love dogs, and so I was glad the Beast turned out to be a goodest boy and and then they made the shirt for him, or they got the shirt for him and everything, and we're playing with him at the end, because that's all Beast wanted to do is play ball with the boys, I think. So anyway, I think that is all we've got for tonight. I thank you for putting up with me. I always knew I was going to want to do Bloodsport. We'll get some of those bigger name movies in there coming up. And you know what I want to do? Apologies. I'm always wanting to tell people what next month's movie or next week's movie is, and I keep forgetting to look it up because I'm trying to make sure I didn't forget anything good to tell you guys. So once again, I'm gonna go put it on Twitter right now. You can see it tonight. You can see it in the morning. I'll do a quick tweet on Coordination on X/Twitter, whatever Dick Boy calls it, and then you can see what we're going to be doing next week. So if you want, some people want to do the homework and watch the movies a little, so I'll get that on there here in about 10-15 minutes, if not quicker. And we are at the end of our show. Let me see, did I bring in any pictures? I was actually in Georgia last week, and I got a couple of good pictures, just two, I promise. This is this is the view off my grandparents' former house, and this was the view. Like they didn't have the little picket fence and the flowers back then. It was just, there was a little barn off kind of where the left side of the screen would be. And then I'm pointing at it like you guys are watching me on the screen right now. And then that in the back there, that's the Appalachian range. So that is the southern, like the very near end of the range up there. So they had the view. The tree kind of blocks the mountains to the right, that were to the right, the local mountains that are a lot closer. But that was like when we'd hang out on the back porch reading, taking in an evening breeze or whatever. That would be the view. So I threw that in there. I also tossed in my connecting flight was from Atlanta. I was in Atlanta, or in the mountains, but then flying out of Atlanta, fly to Denver, and it was kind of stormy to the west of Denver that day in the south. But there's a nice little view of a storm, just like literally out the window of the back row of what was going on. That looked like about 20 or 30 miles to the south of us. So that was fun. It was a very windy. We weren't being stormed on, but it was very, very windy, and there was a lot of the wings doing this number, and we literally take a little dip as they go to land, so you kind of felt the old 1-2 landing when they hit. So nice job by the pilot. Thanks for getting us home in one piece. I pumped it last week when I was in Georgia and did it from my aunt's basement there, and the Varsity, finest fast food restaurant in the world, bar none. I will not be talked out of it. It had been probably 30 years since I'd been there, and finally got my chili slaw dogs with the world's greatest onion rings, deep fried like crazy, and the fried batter just melts in your mouth. Delicious. Okay. Have to cook up a bowl of soup or something maybe. So anyway, that's it for tonight. Thank you all very much. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Wait. Last minute comments. Don't want to. Yeah. Oh yeah, Kaylee. 100%. Georgia has some hidden gems of landscapes. It's something to see. It's grown over a lot more. So a lot of the views are a little more obstructed, at least on the country roads. The old country roads that we drive on, because you just have now the vines hanging all over the trees. Just the warmer climates just really kind of set off a lot of that growth. I remember when they were crabbing about it in Virginia, but it's still amazing. And thanks, Fred. Fred said, "Sweet pick, thank you much." Oh, fell asleep watching the bear. I thought it was better than last season. I thought last season, where they accomplished a lot, there were just too many way too long scenes of those close-ups, and I don't mind those. I like when they shoot them, but I don't want like 8 straight minutes of it. So this, I thought they got away from that. Probably the most boring part was, let's just say there's one scene where you're kind of expecting an explosion and don't get it, and it's kind of funny that you don't, because they really make a deal of the people at this place getting work. One guy's literally, somebody goes, "You want this, don't you?" And he's like, "I do. I really, really do." He just loves to watch the was it Barzetto? I always screw up the last name, but loves to watch those dust-ups. I don't know. How dare you besmirch the good name of Runza? I like Runza's rings. These are another level. I'm not besmirching Runza, I swear. But these guys have been around probably longer than Runza. They started out in Atlanta. Now I think they're in Athens. They have like 7 or 8 locations. I was at the original. Pretty sure the original was Atlanta, and Athens was too. But yeah, it still has a lot of the old look. I had pictures. I didn't put those up. But yeah, these, trust me, I've had them both, and it's not close. It's not. Runzas don't melt in your mouth the way the varsities do. But anyway, yeah, Fred. Oh, oh shit! Is that food Dylan's training table? No, this is Atlanta, man. And Gunnar Stockton's training table, maybe, not Dylan's. Oh God. So that's it, Fred. I missed you. It's like I was really, I wanted to hear from you. No pit snipe, no TSD. So hopefully we get him back next week. And yeah, check Twitter shortly. Gonna pop it up there. And I believe that's it. No, Dylan, man, he actually, I think it sounded like, I remember like in the spring, I was at the press conference where Matt Rule kind of set off a firestorm. We're just trying to keep Dylan under 240. And if anything, he's probably getting to 230. And if you look at Dylan and Dayton, and you know that in another world, they could be 290, 300-pound centers if they wanted to beef him up that way. And instead, I think what he said was that he went home for spring break and on his own dropped 5 pounds. They wanted him to get just a little more mobile, because you've watched him. He's quick. He's quick. That if he's got like a one-on-one sack situation, he does a really good job of kind of hanging there and then darting out of their way. And Ohio State found out, he's not a slow guy. He's just not Lamar Jackson fast. So I think they're just trying to get him a little more nimble. Yeah, just don't screw with his arm. Kaylee says, "I came in late. I'll try to be earlier next week." Well, you do that. You do that, Kaylee Bartles. Wonderful having in. Late. We take better late than never. Normally, we can see the number of like people who are watching, and it's not the same number at the beginning as the end. It is absolutely a case of people coming in. And remember, you can go on the link that works in the article on Corn Nation that I put out at like 5:30 or so the day of, like 2.5 hours before. If you missed anything that you want to check, you can just go click. You can go click that same link, and then the whole thing will be there for you, and you can jump around, do what you want. So yeah, don't feel bad about coming in late. Just happy you wandered in at all, and good to know you'll be back next week on time, for crying out loud. And thanks to everybody who watched tonight. We will see you next week, 8 p.m. Same Husker time, same Husker channel. And I think, I love this movie. Sometimes you can just see it. I'm watching myself here on the screen, looking at the camera, and I realize I just smiled all the way through this one, and I might have to give Bloodsport like its 51st viewing or so, maybe later this week. So we'll see you guys next Tuesday. I'll be doing this up till, I believe, the week. I'll flip the week of the Cincinnati game to the Husker happy hour. That's when we go. That's just pure football, Husker football, and enjoy the rest of the summer. Hop in when you can. If there's one thing I probably do by lumping it on anybody still watching, is I just blast away about sports movies, and then therefore maybe I don't do it to my friends nonstop. Although I think after this trip to Georgia, my sister and mother who were down there with me would argue that point. So love you guys. Thank you so much. See a couple people still jumping in. Like I said, if you're just jumping in now, I just caught a few of you. As soon as this is over, you go in and use the link in the article on Corn Nation from a couple hours ago, and right there at the top, it'll be the link. So hop in and watch if you care to. So love you guys. Good night. As always, go Big Red. This is the year the curse is lifted. We're going to a bigger, better bowl. Hell, some lunatics even have us in the conference. Check the website. There was some good stuff on there in the polls. We've been doing a poll each week. I just sent them a couple of at least one funnier question, which I hope everybody will get into in the spirit of hating Iowa. And remember on Thursdays to watch Minnie and Greg on the Five Heart podcast. And I believe, not believe, she is. Minnie is doing Monday Night Therapies, so be sure to catch her. I believe Monday Night Therapy is at 8, and the Five Heart doesn't start till 9, maybe. I've been on a couple of those. So just check. They do the same day article. They'll tell you the time. But I think I got them right. And finally, good night all. Love you guys. See you next week. Go Big Red.